Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC Champion. Alongside me is my guy, AB.
Yes, sir.
Next to him is my guy. Oh, we got Dayo in the building.
I ain't decided to show up, huh?
Thanks for joining the pod.
Yeah.
Record a podcast?
We're recording the podcast.
Yeah, welcome.
Right
Right on time.
Hey, make yourself comfortable.
Okay,
my friend.
cool.
You want a drink?
I think I brought my own.
You good? You good?
But thank you,
All right.
though. Thank you, though.
All right.
All right, guys. A couple weeks ago, AB dropped his receiver rankings. Updated receiver rankings. We had to take last week off because we live in Houston, had a storm.
Hurricane smacked us around.
Didn't have any power, so we had to take the week off. But this week, AB did his running back rankings, and he didn't only just do, 30 like we did with the receivers, 50 running backs.
Yeah, man, we live in the age of RBBC. So
Your top
had to,
50.
And honestly, I mean, clearly,
So we're gonna go
that's
through
still
all 50 of
deficient.
these?
But
I guess we got to go through all 50.
We're definitely not going through one. We're not going through all 50.
Let's go through it for a second. Let's take a look at it. Your top 50 running backs. I mean, this list is deep, man. Bijan first, C-Mac second, and Brees third.
Whoa, a change at the top.
And
Well, see, I mean, honestly, I don't feel like that's all that, I mean, look, Bijan's getting a lot of love right now. You've seen them skyrocket up boards, whether it's quotes, whether it's projections of the new offensive coordinator, whether it's comments about a head coach or just a guy kind of entering into his second year.
Oh, no, I don't have a problem with Bijan, but didn't you have Brees as your number one guy?
I did. Okay, so that is the big change.
That's what I'm talking
That
about.
is the big change. And, sometimes I'll stick to my guns. Sometimes I'll kind of dig my feet in. But sometimes I will, take in new information. And Bijan was always kind of in that tier. I've always, kind of talked about how there's, been this top 3 tier. And, the more and more I look into the situation, the more whispers that come out. Forget about him kind of having the C-Mac role. This, to me, is also where projections are kind of helpful to kind of put things in perspective as far as, okay, C-Mac just far and away outscored all the other running backs. So how did he do it? So you look at his his touch total as far as carries. You look at his receiving, and a lot of it obviously came down to touchdowns. And when I'm putting these guys in tiers, I need to see, or at least be able to see that these guys can potentially compete with C-Mac for that number 1 overall spot. So C-Mac's also getting a little bit older. He had a lot of carries that extended into the playoffs, into the Super Bowl. And obviously they want to be right back there so they can actually try and win the Super Bowl. So not necessarily worried about C-Mac from a standpoint of him being a fade, but if I had, if I had to put my house up, who was going to finish at the top out of these 3, right now would be Bijan. Yeah.
What I don't get is how Gus Edwards is number 29. So that's pretty high for me for a guy that's, 1, not healthy. 2, I'm not even sure if he's going to be the starting running back at the beginning of the season. I mean, why Gus being so high? I mean, I guess there's only 32 starting running backs, and I guess he's number 30. So you're projecting, 29. Are you projecting him to be the starting running back for?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why he's up there. Now, this isn't so much about me just being in love with Gus Edwards, but this is really just about the other running backs that are going behind him. Yeah. A lot of question marks. I see a lot of guys who were, the running back 2 or, part of the 1B in a committee, and guys who I just am very questionable, have a questionable upside, Any of those guys, though, in that tier could, potentially take over a larger role due to an injury or something like that. But to me, when I look at that Chargers offense, I think that they are bringing in a very effective run scheme, just historically. Forget about, the attempts. I think it's going to be extremely effective. And I think it's going to, shock a lot of people. I think that division is not going to be used to it. They'll obviously try and, look back, at Greg Roman's tape and whatnot. But I see Gus as the clear lead back. We've kind of talked about Kamani Vidal here and there, and every time I watch this tape, I just see a guy that is just uninspiring. Yeah. And J.K. coming off the Achilles for me is just I just can't take a guy coming off the Achilles. That's just me personally. He could definitely we could definitely see medical advances and newer procedures and see him sort of kind of be the first one to actually come back 1 year later. But for me, I'd rather just avoid that. So that leaves Gus.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you think about the list, though?
Come on, man. You know I hate rankings and all of these. Like, they're just names, right? I could talk myself. Well, definitely I can't talk myself into all of these guys, but I could talk myself into like half of these guys being changed around the rankings. I will say I'm looking at the very back of the rankings, and I don't agree with like half of those guys. Yeah. I think Zeke is way, way too low. I think Zeke is actually underrated this year. I think Hubbard is way too low. I think Hubbard's going to start the year as a starting running back. Yep. I think Ty Chandler is too low. I think Ty Chandler might become a 1B to Aaron Jones 1A to start the season. We don't know how the season plays out. Yep. I think Lloyd is too low. I think Spears is way, way too low. So, yeah, I don't even know what to do with Chase Brown. I think Charbonnet is sneaky underrated. Jaylen Warren, I think, is too low. I think Pollard's too high. So, but otherwise.
That's a tough tier. That's a tough, like that whole, because like you said, obviously you got your reasons for why you think those other guys should be higher, but like that's that ambiguous backfield situation. Yeah. And that's what like I'm fully anticipating, throughout training camp, this sort of kind of changing. But
what's crazy?
That's an important rank.
You can really say, and looking at the front part of the list, man, after like number 11 kind of falls off a cliff, maybe. I like Kamara. I think Pacheco's okay. So maybe after Pacheco, I think it just falls off a crazy cliff where I think everything becomes ambiguous. Yeah. Like everything, right? Like Aaron Jones is cool, but if you told me Ty Chandler again was playing a lot of snaps, I believe it. So go ahead.
Yeah. When it comes to Aaron Jones,
I'm not. No, I get it. I'm just kind of, that was the next guy on the list.
Yeah, but that tier specifically, Kamara, Pacheco, Aaron Jones may be questionable, but Ramondre Stevens and Joe Mixon, to me, that's a tier of guys who are maybe older, maybe not the most athletic, maybe not the most explosive, but are going to be see a sizable workload. There's very kind of like little question as to if they're going to be the 1A in their offense. So that's why I had those guys in that tier. Doesn't necessarily mean that
My thing is so specifically with Aaron Jones. Yeah. You're right. They're probably going to be the 1A, and teams draft rookie running backs all the time, and sometimes they just don't get a lot of PT or their depth. Yeah. But something about those third-round running backs, right? Lloyd, they use third-round draft capital on them, and you can say the same thing about Corum and who's the other guy? Benson. You can say that about Benson. All these guys that got this fairly solid draft capital that still have good, solid running backs in front of them. I don't think teams use that type of draft capital and don't use the player, right? I think if you're going to use that type of draft capital, you have some kind of plan for that player. Now, the question is going to become, how good do they look when they get those opportunities? Because if they get those opportunities and they look like superstars, the team might start making a decision like, maybe we should go with the youth. Yeah. They're cheaper, preparing this guy for the future, our laid back. And then you see the changing of the guard by the end of the season.
So I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. And that's actually built into the rankings. Yeah. Like you can even start off with Kyron Williams. If you look back, points per game, I think he was like the number 2 running back. So he's not being and he's a young guy. Yeah. Still in a same offense. Third year, I believe. Nothing's changed. Still a young guy. But instead of being like ranked in that top tier, you can see now he's in that third tier.
I feel like everybody feels that way. I actually think you have Kyron higher than what most people would have him, because I think everybody has that same fear. And me, so me, I'm an ADP drafter, right? Yeah. Like if you were to just say straight up, if you were to lock me up and force me to give you rankings, right? Yeah. I would probably have Kyron as high as top 5. Yeah. Just because we see what he did last year. Yeah. That offense didn't change at all.
Exactly.
It didn't. If anything, now they have continuity. Yeah. Because you got to keep in mind that they wanted to use this guy 2 years ago, but he got hurt. They didn't. He didn't get to play as much. Yeah. But we always heard his name, right? Yeah. And then this last year, during this time, we heard his name, but we kind of didn't want to believe it because Akers was still there. But we kept hearing that drum beat. Yeah. And then they literally cut Akers after week 1. Yeah. They give him that workload, and we see kind of what they were talking about, Yeah. So what changed? Yeah, they added Blake Corum, which, it's a little scary, but is that a reason to say a guy that was top 3 in fantasy at a position. Just
100% agree.
Just totally just drop him in your rankings.
That's why
He's still
I'm lower.
young.
That's why I'm lower on the markets with Blake Corum. You know, it's almost like it's equivalent to the James Conner Benson situation. It took like somebody, you know, I don't even think it was a coach. It may have just been a beat writer coming out saying that this is James Conner's job, which doesn't even mean
know how
much.
I feel about that beat writer stuff.
But what I'm saying is, exactly, that doesn't mean much. But what did it do? It shifted the markets. Now you saw Trey Benson's ADP start to fall, and
really?
James Conner ADP start to rise. So I see a similar scenario with Kyren Williams, where right now his ADP is depressed. Nobody's in pads. All we're hearing, you know, he was out most of minicamp. And all we were hearing was how good, Kyren Williams was out.
Okay.
Yeah, and all we were hearing was how well Blake Corum was getting acclimated to the new system and how well he was doing in OTAs or in minicamps. Exactly. So,
but I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to contradict myself and say Blake Corum is not a good player or he's not going to get a lot of work this year. All I'm saying is, I mean, you can see pros and cons with every single player on the board, right? Mm-hmm. Except for maybe those top three. And if you really, you know, put my, you know, foot to the fire, I can, you know, have an issue with the top three guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but with that being said, Kyren, we saw him do it just recently. He's still young. Yeah. And again, the offense is the same. Personally, I think Gibbs is a little too high. Just in the whole market. Remember when we first started drafting this summer, Gibbs was going in the first round? He was right there at 108, 109. Now if you look at drafts, he's going like in the early second. So it's almost like people are starting to kind of wake up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if you're a Gibbs believer, man, right now is the opportunity to scoop him up because definitely he's there for you.
Yeah, Gibbs is one of the ones, like if I did projections, his projection would not match up with his rankings. Obviously,
you have David Montgomery.
So with Gibbs, for me, this is not a situation where I think Gibbs is just going to take over for David Montgomery. Mm-hmm. This is a situation where I see a very, very explosive back behind one of the best O-lines in the league in a very, very productive offense, someone who can do it all. Yeah. So if I go based off of like what I'm projecting as far as like if everybody stays healthy and everything is even, then I'm not going to have any Jamar Gibbs. I'm not going to have any. Mm-hmm. But we know that chaos ensues. And that's just a guy like explosive players like that. Yeah. I need to have. I need to have. In my rankings.
So just looking at this top 11, who would be your least owned running back? With that statement being said, and I said top 11 just because that's where that tier break is. Who would be your least owned player?
Rashad White.
Number 11.
right.
I'm actually, I'm not on Rashad White like I was last year. Mm-hmm. But he's going like in a very like acceptable range. He's going like, and nothing has changed with him. I don't think that there's really much competition at all. He lost his OC, but he gained an OC as well. Okay, so I don't necessarily know that like we can't just assume that the offense is going to get necessarily worse. It's going to be a McVay type system. Remember, their issue last year is they couldn't run the ball whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So he was very inefficient. Mm-hmm. What if this new OC, who's again under McVay, the McVay tree, brings over a system. What is this guy's name? Look up his name.
Where'd he come from?
He's from the McVay tree.
Like what team was he on last year? You don't remember?
I can't recall off the top of my head right now. Actually, no, I don't. He may come from the collegiate level. I think he was a quarterback coach or something with the Rams.
Cohen.
When
Liam
Cohen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When he was
with
Baker.
The Rams, I think, at one point.
Yeah. He was when Baker was there. Yeah.
So he was the Rams with Baker. Yeah, I remember.
So there's some familiarity there. But so what I'm saying is like I'm not just because they lost their OC, I'm not going to just necessarily assume that the offense is going to be worse. Because again,
I'm not saying the offense is going to be worse. Yeah, not a worse thing.
He did come from college as well. He was Kentucky's.
That's right.
Yeah. It could be.
Speaking of, I mean, this is kind of related. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Rashad White, Bucky Irvin, the running back that the Rams drafted.
Yep.
Yeah. Who everybody's saying is a threat to some
Tampa
extent.
Bay.
That's what I'm saying. What did I say?
Oh, you said Rams. But
I'm sorry. The running back that the Bucs drafted. Yeah. Everybody's saying it's threatening Rashad White's role. I'm still on the fence with that. I don't know where I'm at because I think he was like a 5th round pick. Yeah. But with that, maybe 4th round. But with that being said, the running back that was on the board that was drafted like a few picks after him was Ray Davis.
Yeah.
Ray Davis played for Kentucky.
Yeah.
So it's like people brought up the fact that Ray Davis' own OC. Yeah. When one of the running back didn't even draft his top running back.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, Bucky Irvin and Ray Davis are two different type of running backs, so maybe he wanted a certain style.
And maybe they feel, that's true. That's true.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just something, just little footnote, I guess.
I mean, that same thing can be said about the Chargers and J.J. McCarthy, too. I mean, like, not J.J. McCarthy, but, like, the way that, what's his name?
Harbaugh,
like, kind of talked about J.J. McCarthy.
He loved him. I think.
No, he didn't.
But, I mean, they do. I mean, they have Justin Herbert. So, like,
could
they have, like, traded?
I mean, Justin Herbert, one of the best rookie quarterbacks ever.
Yeah.
No, but like what I'm saying is, if he was there and you knew that another team wanted him, then like that should have been kind of used.
But the thing with the Bucks is they actually drafted a running back. Like they actually drafted a guy at that position and still didn't get him.
Yeah.
You know.
So clearly, I think you're right. I think like they had a role in mind. Maybe that third.
Or there's a knock on Ray Davis.
Well, if you look at the list, I got Ray Davis. In that sort of kind of tier of like these, with the Marshawn Lloyd and
I like Lloyd this year a lot. So I don't know what to do with McLaughlin. I know you're big on estimate, so to be big on estimate, you kind of have to be slightly down on McLaughlin. So I get it. One other thing I want to mention with your rankings, I don't know how I feel about Zamir White this year. I know people are kind of excited about him and want him to be a thing and feel like he's a value, but I could see it going left so easily.
Yeah.
I don't think he's much in the passing game, even though they did give him a lot of passing work at the end of the season, when he had that stretch of good games. But, I mean...
So I will say this, though. Again, new OC, new offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, was with the Bears last year. So new run scheme, potentially anyway. So, apparently this new run scheme is more of kind of what he did in college where he excelled. So there are outs. So, like, if he say he like does extremely well next year, he's averaging like 4.5, 5 yards a carry. Like that probably is going to be a reason why. But I 100% get you as far as like the offense may just be terrible. But
I don't want to say the offense is terrible. But I just don't know if I think Zamir White is as good as what people think he is. And then on top of that, something in the back of my head saying, man, don't ignore Alexander Madison and Dylan Lobb or whatever they.
So the question would be
just other running backs there.
Question would be then, like, so Zamir is at 28. Who do you move ahead of him?
Really, you should say, how far down do I move Zamir White?
Wow. Okay.
I might move him. I think he's right there with Devin Singletary.
Okay, so you take Jalen Warren, David Montgomery.
I would definitely take Jalen Warren before Zamir White.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I think I have Jalen Warren over at Najee, personally. So
you're not alone. You're not alone in that. I mean, they're pretty close in the rankings, but you're not alone in that.
Yeah. My biggest thing that I love about your rankings though is how high you have Brian Robinson Jr.
Yeah, he's been a
I'm
staple.
a big fan of his, so I like he has a little bit of respect on this list. Chris hates Brian Robinson.
I just don't see it. I don't see him as like a special talent.
I didn't say he was special. I think running back, in my opinion, is a position it's all about opportunities and efficiency. Right? Like you can have one of the most talented running backs. Remember we used to talk about the spark score, Christine Michael and all those type of running backs. For some reason, they just don't produce in the league. And you have running backs that are straight plotters. Like, who was the guy that used to be with the Broncos with Peyton Manning? A little short, stubby guy. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, man. I think he won number 22. He wasn't special,
what was his
but
name?
he was getting yards and
then he hopped on the Rams right off the couch.
Yeah, y'all know who I'm talking about. The people that are watching know who I'm talking about, man. But he wasn't special. So
that's when Todd Gurley's knees gave out.
Yeah, but I digress.
I don't know. I mean, just going through these, it's hard to not compare certain running backs. Like, you have Dottle at 39, but Zeke at 50. So you think Dottle is the
starter?
It's a starter there?
I think he's a starter. I really don't want any of the Dallas running backs, to be quite honest. I think it's just going to, like, really mostly be going through the pass. So it's going to be one of those situations. Like, sometimes, like, a guy can be a value. You can look back at the end of the year, he finished at RB 28, and we got him at RB 50. But he didn't do anything as far as helping you win. Like what if like you so what if like Tony Pollard you drafted in the 12th round last year? Did he do much to help? Like, were you probably weren't even starting him in the 12th round. So sometimes it doesn't matter. Like so that's why I push some of these guys I just pushed down. Go ahead. But unlike but if you look at the Denver backfield, the Broncos, I have 3 guys in the top 50. And that's kind of by design because like I mentioned in the
I was
group
gonna
chat.
bring those up too. Yeah.
Like I mentioned in the group chat.
Who are the three? Where's Javonte?
Javonte Williams is at
33.
is at 33.
Oh, wow.
McLaughlin at 42, and Estime at 48. One of these guys is not going to do anything. Okay, but I think two of these guys are going to be very, very relevant. So I'm just going to be,
real quick, your
taking my
point
picks.
about,
Yeah.
I agree. You have these players that you could have gotten real late, and they're better than the value that you got them at, but they're still not somebody that's really take you over the top.
Yeah.
I get that, but my only pushback is we have to keep in mind this is a game of attrition. Players get hurt, bye weeks occur. There's a point where you can have the greatest roster, superstars, but one of your guys happens to get nicked up, and you need somebody in a pinch to kind of get you by for a week or two. And sometimes player like I would say Zeke, but in your case, Dowdle can help you get by. Even if it's not like a 20-point game, sometimes those 11-point games is real good. It comes in a crunch.
And that's what that tier is. That's where the Javon Ford, Ray Davis, I think is going to have a bigger role than what people think. Because when I look back at last year, even when they went to
Ray Davis?
when they went to a more run-heavy script, James Cook was still playing like 50-60% of the snaps. Latavius Murray was still a thing, and then they brought in, I forget, what his name was.
Are we sure that Jerome Ford is better than Foreman?
That was gonna be my what if.
Yeah, okay.
That was gonna be my what if. So
that's a good question to pose. That's a good question to pose. That's why this is I think going to drastically change as we get through training camp, because that is one reason why I have not had a lot of Jerome Ford, but. Devontae Foreman is a journeyman, so it's hard to kind of like.
One more thing about this ranking that I need him to address, then we can move on, or you can keep talking about it. But I need you to explain to me why Spears is so low and why he's so far behind Pollard.
Yeah,
I need to understand
this
that.
is like okay, I gotta decide which way I'm gonna go.
Okay,
I'm not gonna be on the fence with this.
There you go. Okay,
I'm not gonna be on the fence.
Respect.
Yeah, so I really I feel like they probably are going to – I know they're saying they're interchangeable and this and that, and they very may well be, okay? But I really do believe that there's going to be one back that's going to be primarily in that backfield. Is going to get the majority of the touches. And then there's going to be another guy that's going to be sort of kind of, the 1B who's going to get 35% of the touches. And so
I feel that. I
think
that.
that's, Tony Pollard.
So if you just thought the other way, then you would just switch them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I got you.
So we haven't gotten a ton of news right now. Again, camp is about to start.
What you talking about? We got all types of news. We finally got news. We got real news too.
What real news have we got?
Okay. We can. One of them I want to touch base on later. We can talk about Brandon Ayuk's trade request.
That's not news. We always knew
that
he
we didn't
won
know
a contract.
anything. We knew he knew maybe, and we had a discussion with him. It could have been Debo.
Yeah.
Now he's like, man, I went out the door, and it can still go any way.
Yeah.
But now it's like for real
because he wants the contract, and he's like,
he's always wanted a contract.
Right, and if they offered him like a contract, then he'd take it.
Of course, but that's the thing. I saw a tweet that said he wants to be traded because he wants to be paid.
Yeah.
And the 49ers don't want to trade him, and they don't want to pay him.
Right.
So it's like
he's not sitting down.
But that's every single player. Like.
But I'm saying if they pay him, he stays. If they don't pay him, he's out the door. You know what I'm saying? So it's news. I think the other stuff has just been fluff.
But the question that I have for you though is, how do you filter through some of this news? Like, what do you see as fluff? What do you see as like actionable news? Like, how do you sort of filter through, like what you actually want to use and what you don't want to use?
There's two ways that I play this. Okay, the first way is, I'm taking this news in and trying to decipher, is it relevant? Is it not relevant? And it's not binary. So something may be like a little bit relevant. Maybe it like adds 1% to like my overall, view of said player. And then maybe it's extremely relevant and it moves a guy up into like another tier. So that's one way, and unfortunately a lot of the news, especially nowadays, because people are aware of clickbaits, people are aware of, the importance of getting likes and views to beat wise. That's their job,
Right.
So they are purposely putting out bait for people to click on and latch on to. So even when I read it, I know that the beat writer's intention was to get a lot of views on this, which automatically you just got to really critically appraise everything that you read these days. So it's tough. The second way though, and this is kind of I think what is a little bit more has a little bit more impact to me when it comes to fantasy, is I really, really pay attention to what it does to the markets, because then I want to take advantage of it. The Brandon Ayuk thing is a great instance. So if I see Brandon Ayuk start to fall in drafts now, because I haven't really been drafting him a lot, I feel like he's been going too high. I feel like we've been drafting him at a ceiling. But if people are scared or concerned, if the public as a whole or the majority feels that, okay, he wants out, or there's going to be an issue with him holding out, they're worried about, maybe him getting hurt early in the season because he's not at training camp, or they're worried about whatever destination he goes to that maybe he's not, he doesn't hold value, whatever it is. But if I see his ADP start to, fall, now my sort of kind of attention turns to, let me acquire some Brandon Ayuk shares when it drops. Same thing with Debo. Like, I almost, just kind of hearing all this stuff throughout the offseason, and seeing where Debo's been going right now, I feel like, Debo's, I've been getting a lot of Debo in the 4th round. And I feel like that's sort of kind of that's probably going to be like his floor, his ADP floor for most of the year. So I've been really aggressive about, really getting as much Debo in the 4th round as I can. Because if this news continues, I think the biggest change is going to be increase in Debo's ADP and an increase in George Kittle's ADP. So I really want to pay attention to what the market is doing, and I want to try to win off of that if I can. That's kind of how I play it.
But Dayo, how do you sort of filter through the news and figure out what's actionable?
So for me, I kind of try to ignore a lot of it. I think a lot of it is fluff, and a lot of it is opinionated. I try to eliminate everything that's opinionated by far. Like everything I consider subjective. Yeah. Where just somebody looking at it and then giving me their thoughts. Yeah. Because just because you think that way doesn't mean I would think that way. Yeah. Just because you gather information and you come up with this conclusion doesn't mean I would gather that same information, come up with that same conclusion. Yep. Me personally, I'd just rather have the information. Yeah. And when I speak of information, I'm talking about things that I would consider objective. So who's running with the first team? Yep. Who's the player that's signed? Who's the player that's cut? Who's getting more reps compared to another player? Yeah. Things like that. Things where it's this is not anything where you can have an opinion on it, I can have an opinion on it. Somebody that's getting those first team reps, it is what it is. Yeah. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't type thing. So that's kind of what I like to pay attention to. I don't totally ignore it in the fact where I don't read it because, I love reading things that kind of support my priors. Like I said, I love Tyjae Spears, so if I see something where somebody like, man, Tyjae Spears looks great, I'm going to smile, but I'm not going to take that and be like, oh, man, let me get some more Tyjae Spears. Let me go try to trade for him in all my teams. Yeah. So that's kind of how I do it. I think right now, any news that comes out, and really anything that's come out in the last 4 weeks should totally be ignored because nothing's happening right now. I think people need something to fill in their news in the sports column, the writers or anything like that. So they'll put things out. But in reality, all these players are gone from the facility. They're all doing their own thing, whether they're enjoying their personal life, getting with teammates and doing things. But nothing's actually happening in the last 4 weeks to change views from, June to, now.
So something like a rumor, you'll just completely ignore until it's...
Yeah, I'll ignore those.
Completely. And it won't change how you feel.
Totally, completely. Give me an example.
All right, so the Davante Adams thing.
Totally ignored it, man. Come on, man. Stop it. If you look at my Twitter, you'll see when I saw a tweet about it. I put stop it. Come on, what are we doing here?
So you totally ignore it. So that, I like to take things in that. Again, my source told me this last week. As I told y'all.
People with sources, man.
No, I told you my source said, hey, man, Davante Adams might be getting shopped, and I'm hearing the Jets kind of poking, and this was before ESPN said it, so my source is pretty accurate about the rumor. Whether it's going to happen or not, that's a whole other thing. But
I think as long as Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are in the league, there's always going to be people that try to put them back together, connect them. That duo is one of the greatest duos in NFL history.
Well, let's move to the next segment, though, on the what if, though.
Look, okay. What if it stole my what if, but...
What if that does happen? Okay. What does that do for Garrett Wilson?
It has to drop Garrett Wilson.
Absolutely.
It has to.
Absolutely.
Out of the first round?
He's at the back end of the first round. So just one spot is dropping out of the first round.
That drops.
I've drafted him as high as 7.
You know what's crazy, though? I don't think Garrett Wilson is who we got to be discussing. I think it's really what are we doing with Davante Adams?
Yeah.
Because Davante Adams right now is going mid to back end second.
Yeah.
So just straight black and white. Yeah. Is his ADP going to increase? Is his ADP going to drop, or is it going to stay the same?
For sure. It'll drop.
I think I might agree with that. It's going to drop.
Yeah.
So basically, it's dropping, in my opinion, both.
Yeah.
then the next question is, what are we doing with Brees?
Brees, yeah.
Because there's only so many touches, right?
Yeah. Brees may fall down a tier. I'm not going to even lie. He might fall down a tier. He might fall down a tier.
And let's be real. And I know, Abby, you don't agree with this. And I definitely hear your reasoning for it. And it's actually pretty good reasoning. But let's be real, man. Aaron Rodgers likes to throw that ball, man.
Yeah.
Like, he likes to throw that ball. And like he
might
wants
be
to
on a
show.
revenge
But,
tour.
but this is what I will say. I mean, remember when he was in Green Bay? Like, even when he had that sort of kind of like MVP type season, and when he was like top 5, he had like a top 5 finish. The pass volume actually wasn't that high. He was just extremely efficient and threw a lot of touchdowns. So I know he likes to pass in the red zone. That's an issue.
I guess the question is, do we? And maybe this is not even a question because maybe he's irrelevant. But do we believe in Hackett to be able to provide for all those players, or is it really just the Aaron Rodgers offense and he's just going to control the show?
It's Aaron Rodgers because again, when that MVP season and that season when he had the top 5, top 6 finish, he had Nathaniel Hackett with him.
Yeah, I know.
So it wasn't like
So I mean, we can see it going a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
just.
and actually moved Davante Adams in my ranking.
Moved him where?
To I think 12.
Oh, you got to show the people the new wide receiver rankings.
Yeah,
Man.
that's what I said.
Man.
Updated.
You gotta.
They're updated.
It's a fluid list.
Yeah, we made a couple changes. We've updated that. I moved up.
So
Malik
here's
Davis.
one thing I do want to talk about, and we don't even got to talk about it today, but it's some episode we have to talk about because I feel like I'm going crazy seeing this. But do you know how many teams have players, like 2 or 3 players going in the first 3 rounds this year?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It is.
Because unless we see just crazy offensive numbers this year, somebody is going to bust.
Look,
There are going to be a lot of busts.
The market's smart. The market is trying to invest in like high-powered offenses. Offenses that are explosive. Offenses that score a lot of points. So those teams that you're seeing that are, have these guys going in these early rounds are like, it's either like a hyper-focused, like very narrow target tree type offense, like, in Miami with Hill and Waddle, or it's an offense that can support multiple people and just, is going to, be top 5 in the league in points.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to some degree, but I think that also, provides some potential advantage as far as looking at some of these offenses where people just like, are going to completely disregard it, just seeing it in a negative light. So a lot of my focus, like early on in the offseason, is focusing in on these like bottom offenses. Has anything changed? Is there any hope? Is there value here? And that's why I actually moved up Davante Adams after like kind of looking into, where he is and where he's going and the new offense and the new OC, So I'm a little bit more sold in terms of kind of like what I'm reading as far as like, I'm a sucker for RPO. I was big on Pittman last year because Shane Steichen coming in and using the RPO, and that first read is just the guy you want in those types of offenses. And so hearing and reading that Getsy used a lot of RPO, and obviously he comes from Green Bay as well, and then how much they're paying Davante Adams being an actual alpha type wide receiver. They're trying to keep him happy. You heard his agent come out and say, ignore all these rumors. All these rumors are baseless. We are here. We are Raiders. I think he's buying in. And I think part of that of buying in is they said, like, look, we're not going to do what Garoppolo and what Daniels did to you. I think part of that frustration was that, like, he wasn't viewed – he was used to being in Eden as the number one. And then when Daniels and Garoppolo were there, he was no longer the one. He was part of it was either him or who's the other wide receiver there?
Myers.
Yeah, Myers. So,
you just mentioned something about Pittman.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you get away with it. You said you were high on Pittman last year because of RPO.
Yeah.
That is apparently going to still be there, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
why are you no longer high on Pittman?
Because we have a healthy Jonathan Taylor now. So we have a healthy Jonathan Taylor, and I think, remember, Pittman was going like 7th, 8th round. The crazy thing? I've never done this, but shout out to Scott and Theo, OG, and shout out to Player Profiler. We back. Hey, we forgot that now. We back. we back. But so I actually went back and rewatched. We did a main event and we shot it live, and we're gonna plan on doing another one. And I just, it started
Scott
with that.
who?
Barrett.
Okay.
It started with that discussion that we had about, like, I think sometimes it's good to like go back and put yourself in your seat from 2023 as far as like how you view players, where you were drafting them, because it's really hard to get away from the recency bias. So I was like, what better way to do that than like actually go back and like listen to myself and like literally word for word. I was like, I think Pittman's a value because of this RPO, Shane Steichen coming over, that first read off, and just like word for word. But he was going in the 7th, 8th round then. So when I started drafting, he was kind of going the 2nd, 3rd round. Pittman in the 4th round, I love. Pittman in the maybe 3rd round, I think is okay. I think that to me is like, I don't view him as someone who's going to be able to get you a lot of touchdowns.
So
that's my main issue.
You're just saying his value is just different this year.
Yeah, his
so
like 3rd
really
round is okay. I don't think it's an issue with 3rd round, but like for me, 3rd round, that's really where I'm taking the staff for a guy who can like end up like number 1 in his position.
I got you.
So
yeah, so like when we talked about like 3 players from the same team, I mean it's really only who Miami.
I mean, not just 3, just multiple players. Like
Detroit.
You have Miami, you have Detroit, you have like the Jets.
Rams kind of close.
The Rams are close.
Yeah.
The Falcons.
Actually, the Rams are there now because
the Falcons are top 3. They
Cup
got
is in 3. Cup is in the 3rd round now. Yeah, Cup is in the 3rd round.
Bijan, London,
Falcons.
and Pitts.
Yeah.
The Dolphins, Waddle, Tyreek,
and all the same, and it's all the same types of offenses. The Shanahan's and McVay's.
Shoot, the Niners, C-Mac, Ayuk.
Yep.
We just said Debo's creeping up,
and Kittle's hot too.
I want to say the Eagles, Brown, Davante, Barkley. Man, that's scary to me, man.
Yeah,
that's scary because.
It is.
There's only so much football to be played. You know what I'm saying?
Like, it is. So that's where the value is. That's where you find the value.
It's funny because I watch games during fantasy season.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is paying attention to the clock. I'm like, how much more time do I have for my player to score points? That's all I care about.
Yeah.
I was looking at where we are, so it's like,
100%
man, you got how much time? What is it? 12, 24, 48 minutes to get 3 players?
Yeah.
To meet that value?
Yeah.
Man, that's scary.
Like, there's some offenses like the Browns offense, for instance. Like, that is going to be an offense that is, I think, really going to potentially be a value some way or the other.
The Browns?
Because those guys are going late, and they score points. They go at a fast pace. They have a good offensive line. I know we're all worried about Deshaun Watson, but, even last year with Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper was still
low-key, we didn't say it, but the Texans to some extent too. I mean, we're fans.
Yeah.
And we want to believe it'll happen.
Yeah.
But they're going pretty high as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about a team that's not going high, that doesn't have anybody in the top 3 rounds. Let's talk about the Commanders for a second. Listen, we always talk about these teams that have low expectations, but as Dayo said last year and said all throughout the season, they're gonna score fantasy points.
Yeah.
Right. Let's look at this depth chart for a second, because I think it's important to look at, Jaden Daniels is obviously 1st round pick, quarterback. But what do you guys think about this offense? Do you think they could surprise some people like the Texans did last year?
Absolutely.
Man, hold up. Y'all know what he's doing, right? Y'all know what he's doing, right? We're just talking about how much we love Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
And he's over here trying to get us to justify it to some extent.
We're not going to let him. We're not going to let him.
No, we can do it. Let's bring up the Commanders.
I think
the Redskins.
The Commanders, I think, are definitely an offense that, potentially has a lot of breakout players or guys going at significant value. And I don't like to throw around the word value, because I really feel like you can say anybody's a value. Really, it's like, okay, well, who are you going to take ahead of them? But what I mean is like, guys that like, even if they're low in the ranks, I'm going to make sure that I have, a significant amount of ownership. So we can start with the guy that's going first off the board. That's Terry McLaurin, okay? Again, new offense. I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury fan, but he runs at a fast pace. And Brian Robinson, when players come out and say things like, "Oh, we're gonna move very fast," almost kind of like no huddle type, like fast, like that's objective, So I think that's important. You run at a faster pace, you potentially are likely gonna have more plays. You have more plays, that's likely more fantasy points. So, and likely more touches for those fantasy guys. So I think that's big. I've never been a Terry McLaurin guy. I've never really truly understood it. I just felt like, he's always been that one guy that people have wanted to break out. He, to me, he was always kind of in that DJ Moore tier. So,
that's
if,
a good comp.
nobody's ever asked, like, who's this year DJ Moore?
Yeah.
It's probably Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Okay, there may actually be a DJ Moore, 2024, and I think it may actually be Terry McLaurin. So, I'm not going to say that there's a QB upgrade. We don't know. I'm not going to say that. But I do think that there's a QB upgrade. I think I'm expecting a more narrow target tree.
Come on,
yeah.
man. Come on, man.
Yeah, and I'm
Now you're just disrespecting Jay.
and I'm
better than Sam Howell.
Absolutely. And I'm
Okay.
expecting a more narrow target tree.
Yeah.
I'm expecting him to be on the
Curtis Samuel's
field.
gone too.
Curtis Samuel's gone.
Yeah.
That is huge. And they have an aging tight end in Zach Ertz, and we all remember what we saw in Zach Ertz. Even though he was catching like 6-7 balls a game, we all saw that this man was old. And
He's just warming up the seat for Ben.
yeah. And then you got a rookie. Yeah, and so this is set up really for Terry McLaurin, and he goes very late in draft. And right now I'm being greedy. I'm at the stage of drafting where I'm greedy, meaning like, okay, this guy's ADP is in the 6th round. Mm-hmm. I'm a hold off. I'm a hold off, even though I have him higher ranked. I'm a hold off and try and get him in the 6th round.
That's ADP drafting right
Exactly.
there.
And that's how you build some of these monster teams. So, because I do, like, that's a guy I 100% anticipate his ADP rising, both him and Jahan Dotson. Mm-hmm. But then we talk about, I'm going to let you talk about Brian Robinson. I got tons of Brian Robinson, but I'm going to let you talk about it because you were on him first. But my favorite player is Jaden Daniels to draft. Easily, by far. That's my favorite player to draft.
Brian Robinson, I don't think there's much to say. I think he did very well last year. I think it was very under the radar because, like Chris said, he's not flashy. He's not the fastest guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the agility. He's not juking people. He had a mean stiff arm, though. I like that. And he has good size, and they used him.
Yeah.
One thing that will always stick out to me is, when he got drafted, and, Antonio Gibson was the one everybody was expecting to be the main guy.
Yeah.
And he wasn't drafted, I want to say maybe he was a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
But we always heard, before he even got shot, how much they liked him.
Yeah.
I forgot he got shot.
Yeah, come on, man.
It's not funny, but it's kind of
They always talk about how much they like him, how serious or how like mature he was and how he's fitting in. Then he gets shot, and we're like, okay, let's, he's done.
Yeah.
Like, all right, sorry, not to be insensitive, sorry. Like we got to move on. We got fantasy points to score. But then he came back, like real soon after that,
real quick.
And then they immediately started playing him.
Yeah.
There's not like something they ramped up, so that kind of like was telling to me like this guy is a pro's pro. The coaches trust him. The team likes him, and again, he did pretty well last year.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, like, I'm pretty sure the Commanders were dead last in the league in rushing attempts.
Yeah.
And so some of that just may came down to like the defense being terrible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some of that may came down to the offensive coordinator. Yeah.
Because it was just so bad.
Yeah. It was a very dysfunctional offense. So
and on top of all that,
a lot of room.
Gibson is gone because Gibson did get work last year.
Yeah.
And I think Eckler's on his last legs. I mean, we saw.
You think Eckler's done?
I think
he had the high ankle last year.
He's on his last legs.
Oh, okay.
Like I think he's almost there.
Yeah.
Eckler's been in the league for a little while.
And he's been kind of talking like it too.
Like it's almost talking like he's ready to give up.
The
big workload.
He's ready to get in the broadcasting.
He's ready to get in the broadcasting.
I ain't ready to work on his podcast.
Yeah.
One thing though, and you kind of buried the lead a little bit, or maybe it's not even a lead, but you kind of slipped it in, and I do think I want to speak on it. Is I think Jahan Dotson is underrated this year.
Yeah.
He is a former 1st-round pick, like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Very
young. He hasn't been bad. I think he's had bad quarterback play, and he also hasn't really taken it to the next level.
Yeah.
Whether that's due, again, just the fact that the quarterback's just horrible or the offense has just been so bad, which kind of has been both the case.
Yeah.
But we know he has talent, and he was a major player in college. The target competition is reduced.
Yeah.
Curtis Samuel's gone, right? So Luke McCaffrey, I'm not a believer in him. He went to Rice, which is out here in Houston. I don't even think he was the best player on his team. I don't even think he was the best receiver on his team. I think he got drafted in 3rd round just because of his brother. It is what it is. But, he might be one of those players where it's like, what was that guy on the Raiders? Number 13, Renfro. I think he might be Renfro light, right? Like a watered-down Renfro. So, again, that gives Dotson an opportunity. And if McLaurin does get all the attention towards him on defenses, Dotson will have opportunity to kind of feast.
Yeah. I think McCaffrey's going to be the Rondale Moore of this offense. That's they've already been talking about him like lining up in the backfield, taking handoffs.
McCaffrey?
Like
in the backfield?
No, yeah,
that would be a mistake.
Yeah. They talked about him in the back, but I don't think it's going to be to something significant. But if you remember, Rondale Moore at times line up in the backfield.
Rondell Mill has the skill set. I don't think McCaffrey has the skill set.
Cliff Kingsbury, he kind of had, his offense is unfortunately somewhat horizontal, but again, faster pace, and probably better than what we've seen.
One last player I do want to mention on this depth chart is Chris Rodriguez Jr., the running back. Now, of course, different, regime as far as coaches, so they might not love him as much as the last regime loved him, but I do like his style. He's a bruiser, the biggest back on their team at the moment.
By far, by the way, too. Like, he just looks huge.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
He's still very young.
Really, I don't know if those types of players are successful in the league now.
I think he's B-Rob's handcuff. I don't think Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler plays like a different type of role. So I think if B-Rob goes down, maybe Austin Eckler's touches will go up, but I think you're gonna see a lot of Chris Rodriguez in those early downs.
I guess what I'm saying is, if given the opportunity, I think he's somebody that can actually be very useful.
Yeah,
and that's not the case with all backup running backs. So,
let me ask you about Benson. Do you think are you drafting him?
I love him. I would draft him. Yes.
He was one of my highest. He was one of my highest rated tight ends. Throughout the process, it's kind of like
if we're going to try to use history to kind of give us a little bit of an edge, we saw what Zach Ertz did for Goddard. We saw what Zach Ertz did for McBride.
Yeah.
He tends to be the guy right behind him that learns under his tutelage, and then when given the opportunity, they shine. Now, the question is, in redraft, is Benson not a good option? I don't know. It depends on when he gets that opportunity.
Yeah.
I believe Ertz can last the whole year.
Yeah. I think he's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a very close McBride situation where, if I have teams where I just missed on tight end and I'm struggling, he's one guy that's going to just ride my bench. Yeah. Because if Zach Ertz goes down, he's the guy that can explode. Yeah. So it's guys like that you got to keep in the back of your mind, and you got to just maybe sometimes ride him.
He has a good skill set. He has running back skill set to him.
Check out his tape. Check out his tape. You're not going to be surprised, because everybody talks about Bowers and how athletic he is. I don't know why people compare him to wide receiver. He is not a wide receiver. He does not run routes like a wide receiver. Okay, he's athletic, okay, but he does not run routes like a wide receiver to me. I feel like if you have him lined up, kind of like how they they were having Pitts lined up at wide receiver the last few years, quarterbacks are going to take him out of the game.
Bowers,
they're going to take him out of the game.
I like Bowers. I don't know. Maybe.
But either way, go check out Ben Sinat's tape, and I think that a lot of people will be fairly surprised at how.
But another good point, and you mentioned initially, just Cliff Kingsbury, right? That offense just runs so many plays.
Yeah.
Right, and depending on how good they are, if they do get in the red zone, I think they're the type of offense that's going to give it to the running back and let him run the ball.
Oh yeah.
Especially now you got a fast quarterback, given the opportunity to RPO. If they put the RPO game in there, I can see him be very, very good offense.
Yeah, and that's I kind of just have James Conner in the back of my mind. He probably won't get James Conner receptions with Austin Eckler there, but if he falls into the end zone, gets double digit TDs.
James Conner or Kenyon Drake? Was James Conner with Kingsbury? I don't remember.
That's actually a good question.
Yeah, I remember.
Maybe that last year.
Because you won the money with Kenyon Drake.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes,
and that was 4 years ago?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
It was 4 years or 3 years ago.
Talk about chaos. He got traded mid-season. Yeah, he was trash.
Yeah, on Miami.
He was unusable.
The crazy thing is that year I was high on him in Miami.
Yeah.
I was man, I'm a Kenyon Drake guy. And then I think they had another running back that was getting all these touches, maybe Gaskin.
Yeah.
And then they traded him this bum, and I dropped him.
Yeah. You may have been the only reason I actually drafted him. Halfway through the season, I'm like, man, you may be drafted. See, this is why I don't listen to you. And he just stayed on the roster. And I remember I started him against I remember exactly. I started him against a defense that was ranked number 1 in the league against rushing. Mm-hmm. But I remember they were missing their nose tackle that game.
Nose tackle,
and I was like, you know what? Let me differentiate. Nobody's gonna be starting Kenyon Drake. Yeah. And he just went
crazy.
Off. It was that was an unbelievable sequence.
Funny how fantasy happens sometimes.
Man, we're not gonna talk about Jaden Daniels.
You can talk about Jaden Daniels.
Okay,
if you
look,
want
man. He's gonna right now. Him and T-Law are my highest owned quarterback.
T-Law.
Why T-Law though?
You gotta explain that one day. No, he's talking about Lauren, but you gotta.
Go ahead.
Talking about Dan, but you gotta explain that one day.
Y'all know I've never been a T-Law guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand him going number 1. When people were saying generational, I did not understand. So I've never been a T-Law guy.
Man, what is this?
Man, get your mushroom, get your infused mushrooms on.
Man, this tastes like it's an acquired taste, but
they're drinking mushroom juice right now. If y'all are curious,
It tastes like
infused mushrooms.
Is it supposed to give you a buzz?
I mean, you literally only drank half the can.
Yeah, I don't know. That's nasty. Just give me some.
I'll bring you a different flavor next time. But anyway, what we talking about?
Talking about Lawrence. You're really supposed to be talking about Daniel.
Oh, yeah. Well, T-Law, since I'm on the... So, I just remember, like, watching the first part of last year. Mm-hmm. You know when you watch a player and you're like, damn, I fucked that one up.
Mm-hmm. Like, that is trash.
Yeah, I thought, like, you know, because I think there were people on Trevor Lawrence last year, and he was going, I was like, I'm not taking Trevor Lawrence in the 5th, 6th round. Like, I'm not doing it. And I just remember watching games, like, I don't think he is as bad as people thought he was going to be. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of just bad things go on, or like a lot of unfortunate events. Injuries, like multiple injuries. He had his, you know, guys like Bixby. I think Bixby accounted for like 2 or 3 interceptions. And, like, you see these interceptions, like, they're the interceptions, like, they, like, hit him in the chest, ball pops up in the air, and then an interception. Mm-hmm. He had, I think, the most drops and most drop touchdowns. So I think there is a tremendous amount of upside. And now you add in, you know, you bring in Brian Thomas, and you bring in, I don't think Gabe Davis is as bad as people think, but you bring in Gabe Davis. If Christian Kirk can stay healthy, you have Evan Ingram, and then ETN catches passes, like, they've upgraded the O-line. I really, really think, like, you could potentially – because remember, these things shift. Like, last year, it was ETN getting all the touchdowns. All of his receivers were dropping touchdowns. These things shift. What if this year it's him getting the touchdown? This is a passing offense to me. This is not a let's run offense. This is a passing offense. And his rushing is also underestimated. So, right now, he's actually my highest owned. The reason he's my highest owned is because he goes so late. Yeah. And I think he actually has tremendous upside that no one talks about. I really do think he has tremendous upside. And then Jaden Daniels, the same reason, you know. But his ADP is increasing, so it's becoming a lot harder to get Jaden Daniels. But Jaden Daniels gives me Lamar vibes. I remember when, like, drafting Lamar the year before he, like, just absolutely went off. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't care. I'm getting him on every single team. You know, he was like, I think, being drafted as like QB 14, QB 15. And I just remember, like, Lamar was always going to be my first QB, and then I would just take like a backup QB after that. Like, I remember I was very, you know, commonly, you know, drafting in with Ben Roethlisberger. So I'm doing the same thing with Jaden Daniels, especially with how many quarterbacks go late this year. So I love getting Jaden Daniels and then whoever. Yeah. You know, whoever afterwards. If it doesn't work out, I have a backup. But, like, this is a guy that, like, has, like, 1,000-yard rushing upside. Like, he really does. And he's in an offense that utilizes RPO. Remember, this offense utilized Kyler Murray. Remember when Kyler Murray came into Kyler Murray's small. Like, yes, he runs around, but he's, you know, and not that, like, you know, Jaden Daniels is big, but with the small Kyler Murray, they still ran that RPO offense. And that was that year that, like, they were running RPO and Kyler Murray was just walking into the end zone because the league was just, like, not used to it, you know? And now Kyler's gotten hurt, so now he hands the ball off a little bit more. But, like, Jaden Daniels' first year, rookie year, like, I just see him, like, taking off quite a bit. I think they're going to simplify the offense for him. He has weapons. Like, I think is a guy that, like, you know, with that rushing upside, like, could really, like, you know, pay off his ADP.
That's
easily.
how I feel about Deshaun Watson. I feel like he can pay off that ADP too.
Oh, you want
rushing upside?
You on Watson now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm back on Watson now.
Okay.
I think he just goes so late that, like, with that type of rushing upside, how many quarterbacks can really give you that type of upside that late? But let's talk about something that very few people are talking about. Dayo's probably going to sit this segment out. But let's talk about the new kickoff rule. And
hey, me out, coach.
Let's talk about the new kickoff rule.
Your popcorn, sit back on the couch.
And how that can affect things, because I think that this is a game changer. I don't know how to see it at this point.
Yeah, it's the number one biggest rule change,
right?
In maybe NFL history, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. Why I don't want to talk about it.
Right. But I do think that we're going to start to see teams start off, you know, further up the field, and so that means more points scored. Maybe means that the kickers.
Does it?
I mean, I think it makes kickers more valuable. And I think, you know, shout out to Linda, you know, who we.
Oh, you mean you think it makes field goal kickers more valuable?
Right. It makes field goal kickers more valuable because if you're starting with a shorter field, then you don't have to move as far to score, you know, points.
But go ahead. Yeah.
So I just want to go through just some of the basics, of the rule at this point. Ball is still being kicked off from the 35-yard line. However, players from the kicking team are going to be on the 40. They can't start running until the receiving player either catches the ball or the ball hits the ground. I think that's the game changer and why we're going to see, offenses start a bit further up the field with shorter fields. But kicker can't cross the 50 until the ball is touched. I don't know why that is even
trying to keep
a
him
factor. But, two players are going to be at the back or two receiving players behind. There's this setup zone, so you have two layers of players.
I'm sorry, 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
I just missed that rule. Did you say the kicker can't cross the 50 until the player touches the ball?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of big.
Yeah.
You don't think that's big?
It's just one extra player. How
but
often
that one extra player is the person that accounts for the ball catcher. Because think about it, you have 11 guys, you have your ball catcher, you have 10 guys blocking for him, you also have 10 guys on the kicking team that are literally each one engaging with a blocker.
I got you.
So then the single guy that's available is straight up like a safety. And if that kicker has to wait,
but the kicker is normally kind of.
It's normally waiting.
Normally.
Yeah.
But remember, we've heard people like the Chiefs talk about putting Justin Reed back there.
Yeah.
Or even the Texans put in Dare Ogunbowale.
I will say this, there's one thing that was interesting, like when I was looking, at the XFL and this kick rule. It's not like they scored that many touchdowns. They really didn't score. I think they maybe scored one, maybe two, if even that. So I don't know, if it's. I think return TDs. I don't think it's going to be I don't know. I don't necessarily.
The talent level is a little different.
I think the talent level does change things.
Is different on both sides, though.
But you're talking about usually special teamers are going to be your bottom of the depth chart players, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about your third stringers, linebackers, backup receivers and stuff. But I think players, and again, and I'll tell y'all why I don't want to talk about it in a second. But I think the teams, when they look at this, they're going to see opportunity and maybe put their best offensive weapon. Or one of their best offensive weapons back there to catch the ball, going against a whole bunch of scrubs.
Especially in open space,
roster fillers.
Don't forget, the way the rules set up, it seems like there's going to be a lot of open space. And some of these players, like a Devin A. Chain, who's back there with open space, and you got, I don't know, man, that could be dangerous.
Do you think they put out, O-linemen out there, starting O-linemen?
Oh, no, that's too valuable. That's way too.
See,
valuable.
Okay, so the reason
alignment is too valuable to risk on a.
The reason I've been hesitant, and I'm still hesitant to discuss this, is because I just don't know how it's going to play out. I think it's just so many different variations and ways you can play it, and I think teams are going to kind of test things. I experiment with different ways to play it, and I think everything we're doing. It's speculation, but I think we're at extreme speculation. We heard things about the Steelers talking about putting Justin Fields back there. So this is just what we're hearing.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most teams that have things up their sleeve, they're trying to keep it hush hush. Yeah. And they're not going to expose it until week 1, or even preseason. So I really personally, again, this is personally, I just want to see it first. Just let me see 1 week of teams doing things. Let me kind of figure out the edges, right? The little things that are okay, that's a little bit. That makes a big change compared to the way it used to be. And then I can kind of say, okay, this is what I think is the best way to approach it.
I think this is so fascinating. And I find it odd that there's just so many things that you can talk about. Player personnel, if teams are really taking this serious and can see a significant advantage, special team player personnel becomes so much more important.
So you put better players out there?
But I'm not even talking about who you're putting out there. I'm talking about who even makes the team. Think about it from a dynasty standpoint. That fourth, fifth round running back that really can only play running back now, but is really good at running back.
He can't make the team.
He can't make the team. So even from that standpoint, I'm interested to see okay, when training camp is done, are there going to be some surprise cuts or or guys that don't suit up every week? And then there's always especially in today's new NFL, there's always guys that may not suit up 1 week, but can easily suit up the next week. Or guys that don't suit up. But that's really the team's handcuff running back. So maybe that's even more exaggerated. Where that may be
that's a good point,
a Chris Rodriguez, for instance. Say he can't play special teams. I don't know, but say he can't play special teams. But that's really the team's RB2. Maybe he's not suiting up, he's on the practice squad, and then we start to forget about him. And then whoever they do have on the practice squad is listed as a team RB2. Brian Robinson gets hurt, everybody goes and drafts.
You're looking at it from the other way. I like
that
too.
So there's that I'm going to be paying attention to. I'm 100% in agreement with you. Week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through week 18.
All I need is 1 week to just see it.
Yeah, I want to see all teams because you want to see because there's a couple different things. The first couple weeks, you want to see who's really good at it. Mm-hmm. Because if somebody is really good at it, one, obviously, the kicker you brought up, I didn't even think about that. The kicker, if, better field position leads to more field goals, leads to more, that kicker is, potentially more of a value.
They just need, 25 yards in their field goal range. Yeah.
I'm sure there's data out there about okay, if you start at the 40, you start at the 50, your likelihood of scoring is X, Y, and Z. That's significant because then in that first week, now that becomes more important as far as players on certain teams and them being in scoring positions a little bit more because yardage really isn't that important. Receptions still are, but yardage maybe not that important. But maybe the two offset each other, with scoring and that. But the other thing too is yeah, in the XFL they weren't scoring TDs, but what if there's a couple really good teams that are doing a really really good job, and do break them. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be the hard thing because I'm not gonna lie, I've been drafting a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm taking a random wild guess. Not just Cordell Patterson, but also Jalen Warren. And Justin Fields, potentially Justin Fields. So, because remember, there's two guys that can be back there. Yeah. So, Jalen Warren was one of the most, one of the guys who had, I won't say most. Well, he was most explosive, but also yards created on his own. He was a very very productive back from a lot of statistical metrics last year. So
now I like that, but my only issue with that is your sample size is so small in what you know.
Non-existent.
Yeah, non-existent. You can say the Steelers got these guys, and I agree with you, they got those guys, but we don't know what the Bucs is doing. The Bucs might have this bad dude back there just ready to go crazy.
Or just the scheme, the blocking scheme.
We don't know what the Seahawks are doing because they're not saying anything.
Yeah, we don't know the blocking scheme. We don't know
I'll tell you one thing. If y'all weren't, for the new viewers that this is your first time seeing this, we're Texans fans. Again, we're in Houston, so 2 years ago, we were kind of embarrassed to say that because people would laugh at us. Now we kind of have our chest out a little bit more.
I told y'all about
what's up? I know, we're trying to tell y'all. But one thing I've been watching them do is they're signing a whole bunch of previous special team captains / good special teams players. They're specifically signing players. It's not to play depth as far as linebacker and running back, but they're specifically signing them for that kickoff, to fill those roles. So teams are really taking it seriously. It's so fascinating to see how it ends up playing out. And again, right now, I can convince myself it could be so many ways, and only one of those ways will probably be right. So I just want to kind of wait and see.
Field position
but it's fun to
so
talk
important
about.
too. Field position is so important.
Yeah. I mean, less punts too, then, right? If you're saying more field goal kicks, you have to be saying less punts.
Yeah.
So less punt returns.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a strange new
world. And more kickoffs because now you're kicking more field goals. Yeah. Kick it off.
So are we going to see this in the preseason? We go
down a rabbit hole with this for real.
Are we going to see this in the preseason? Right?
The Texans. Texans. Who they playing in the All-Star game? I mean the Hall of Fame game.
No idea.
The Ravens or Steelers?
No clue.
I should know this, man, because we were going to go to the game.
I wonder if teams are actually going to do what they.
They're not going to do what they do.
Yeah.
But they're going to.
But you got to practice it at some point.
They're going to do it. Yeah.
No, but you got to practice it.
Are you talking about the crazy stuff?
I mean, but even just your blocking scheme.
Well, don't forget, a lot of teams they have those joint practices.
Yeah.
So they'll practice it there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That just confines to just you and the team that you're practicing against. Yeah.
The article you sent out, they listed 6, 7, 8 different types of blocking schemes.
I didn't even read it.
You just threw
it out there. I just put in the group chat y'all read that. Let me know what y'all think.
Yeah.
So. All right, guys. Let's finish up. Let's go with sleepers for a second. Any sleepers that you guys want to put the listeners on?
You go first.
I mean, y'all know. The same guys from last week. Again, we probably got new viewers because we're on player profile right now. But same guys from last time, man. My Malik Washington, my Casey Washington for the Falcons, who I think if anybody can be Puka this year, a late drafted guy that ends up kind of surprised, I think it might be him. Jacob Cowan, especially with the news with Brandon Ayuk wanting to be traded, and then Ricky Pearsall being on the injured list. I think he's a guy out there. Again, a whole bunch of other guys. Y'all can
if Ayuk gets traded, do you see Juan Jennings kind of taking that with that role?
He's already wide receiver 3. I mean, he's been wide receiver 3.
I don't see him doing anything more.
I think he'll probably play the same role.
Yeah.
I think those other guys. I mean, Pearsall was a first-round pick, so they're going to want to give him his due. I think Jacob Cowan could surprise. I think he's like a poor man's Tank Dell. So remember I told you I have another sleeper tight end. I'm not gonna. If y'all want to hear the rest of my sleepers, watch our last episodes, right? But remember I told you I got another tight end, right?
Yeah. Who is it?
And it's ironic because the news that came out today. Because I text y'all this last week, right before the hurricane. Giants tight end, Lawrence Cager.
Cager?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he was a converted wide receiver.
Yes.
Yeah. We like those.
We like those guys.
Oh, that's a sexy one.
So peep
I thought
game.
you were going to come with some like Mike Gesicki type. That's a good one. I like that one.
Listen to me. Let me cook for just a second, right?
Yeah, let him cook.
So remember, Darren Waller's out the picture.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody's like, oh, it's gonna be Bellinger. They're like, oh no, it's gonna be the rookie Theo Johnson. Like, there's gonna be those two guys.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nobody's bringing up Cager at all. I don't even know if that's how you say his name. It might be Cager or something like that. But again, he was on the roster last year.
Yeah.
Did a little bit, not much, but on the roster as far as knowing the offense.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I remember reading when they interviewed Bellinger during minicamp or whatever you just call OTAs, Bellinger was saying he wasn't getting as many reps with the first team because they were giving more reps to Theo Johnson and who everybody was like, ooh, look, Theo.
Yeah.
And Lawrence Cager. Who everybody was like, who don't worry about the guy. You know what I'm saying?
Don't worry about it.
But they were giving him first team reps.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Again, I was going down the rabbit hole. I realized he was a receiver.
Yeah.
Bam. Okay. Then today's news, Theo Johnson is on the injury list.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's his injury?
I don't even know if they said it.
I don't know, but it just.
I remember him catching like a couple touchdowns and being like, man, who the fuck is taking away touchdowns from
talking about
Darren Waller?
Cager?
Yeah. I think he
used to
maybe
play on the
one or
Jets.
two.
He used to play on the Jets too, but so he went to either Florida or Florida State or maybe Clemson.
Yeah.
He went to one of those big, one of those blue chips. Didn't have great college tape at all, great college numbers at all. Georgia, he went to Georgia. Yeah. But he was on the team, you know what I'm saying? So you have to be talented to even make the team. But again, just that tight end room being open.
Yeah.
And that's like the ultimate sleep. And I'm not even for the redraft people. Don't draft this guy in redraft at all. Do not touch this guy in redraft right now.
Yeah.
But keep him in mind during the season. Like if you start hearing drum beats, he's getting a lot of more reps. Yeah. And again, that's a totally unproven room.
Yeah.
You see he's getting more reps, go grab him up. Really who I'm talking to is my Dynasty folks. Dynasty folks, especially if you play in tight end premium leagues, this guy is an easy ad. Just put him on your roster and see what happens. If nothing happens, drop him. No big deal.
Came with the heat.
Yeah, nobody's talking about him right now.
Yeah. That's dope.
So,
any sleepers?
Oh yeah, sleepers. So Hayden Hurst.
Oh, come on.
Are we going back?
Lucas Kroll. Continue beating that drum beat. And then for the Rams, I'm a Davis Allen guy. I'm Team Davis Allen, not.
And let me throw out some more guys too, so we're just throwing people back out there. Greg Dortch. Well, I think, man, the more I see him, and here's the thing I be doing, right? Like I don't care about the reports, but I'll put a player's name in the search on Twitter and just read random tweets. What are people saying? And I'll just scroll all the way down, just seeing what people are saying. And I mean, Greg Dortch is just he's getting a lot of buzz. Yeah, like he's getting a lot of. He's going to be utilized a lot.
I think Michael Wilson is going to.
I think Michael Wilson too. Yeah. I think it's going to be a 3-man crew. I think it's going to be Harrison on the outside, Wilson on the outside, and Dortch playing the slot. And I think that's where he fits in nicely. Bo Melton, I still like. Dontavian Wicks, everybody knows about, but Bo Melton, don't sleep on him. So yeah, those
who's the odd man out in Green Bay? I mean, like they just have so many receivers. And nobody really breaks through as the
Probably
guy.
Dontavian Wicks, unfortunately.
What if I said it was Christian Watson?
Ooh.
I think he's on his last chance, man.
With this team.
I think with the injury issues. Like, I think they're like, man, look, because I think they're talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, talking about, like, this is a finally, he's seen doctors, like, he's finally, if he gets injured again, then you lose faith in him. You can't try, and then you got all these other guys.
Yeah.
Now if he proves himself, obviously it might be Wicks or
that's a tough room. That's a
it's a really tough room.
Yeah, because you still got Jaden Reed. I mean,
who's being drafted number 1, I think, out of all of them.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, that's all we got this week. Please like, rate, subscribe.
Hey, you gonna talk about the listener league?
Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah, so we still got some slots open for the listener league.
We need y'all to send your emails.
Yes. Hit us up.
We need y'all to send your
DM
emails.
us. How many slots do we have left open?
Not many.
All right. Well, hit us up on Twitter. DM us. Follow us. DM us. Let us know if you want to be in the listener league. So that we can get your emails, so that we can add that, send that to FFPC. I think it's going to be really.
No, I'm going to shoot out an email first.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Just kind of give the details.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very unique listener league. This is not just you draft and that's it. Okay, more news to come.
Yes.
But this is going to be.
Send your emails and I'll get y'all the rest of that information.
Yeah.
Kind of send them in.
Because we're going to do something that's pretty cool with it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. But please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.